Well, welcome everybody. We'll just get it going and see how it goes. So my name is Yaroslav. I'm originally from Russia. I moved to Australia in 2011, so about 10 years ago, 19 years. And I've been, Steve is going to give me some tea if you would like, some tea to enjoy. Well, this is yeah, so I've been always interested in psychology, maybe since I was 13. I've attended lectures of some Russian psychologists, and they used modern psychology along with Vedic knowledge to help people understand what is happiness and how to find happiness. And like a big range of topics they used, for example, like a very popular family relationship, you know, people want to fix their family relationship, or how to find your soul partner, and all of these different topics, or even traditional Ayurvedic medicine, how to use it and how to apply it in your life. So there's a big range of topics that Vedic knowledge covers, and I've been particularly interested in psychology as well. So I started studying psychology, and I did my bachelor course in psychology, and I also did a master's of social psychology. And it's been a really great experience so far, because psychologists don't claim that they know the truth. All they do, they just show this is what we find, and however you want to explain it, you can explain it in many ways. So there's many interpretations of their findings. So we'll look at a few studies today, which I found really interesting, which really connect to the Vedic knowledge. Well, I'm sure you're familiar what is Vedic knowledge. You're all from India? India?
Sri Lanka.
Sri Lanka. Michael? Robert? Yeah. Local ski?
Nepal.
Nepal.
Yeah. Nepal.
Nepal. Okay, good. So, Michael, you've heard of Vedic knowledge before?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So you read some Bhagavad Gita, you said? Yeah. So, Bhagavad Gita is the essence of all Vedic knowledge. It's like a Bible for Christianity, and so it's Bible for Indians. So let's start. Like, what is happiness? Anyone wants to share the definition of happiness? Don't be shy. I'll put some suggestions on the board, and you can say what you can start if you don't mind. Just anything that comes to your mind related to happiness. What makes you happy? Feeling free. I really apologize for my writing. It's really bad. But what does happiness mean for you?
Yeah, unburdened.
Without limitless. I'm thinking of the analogy of like limitless, ocean of love and mercy. So kind of
Limitless, doubleless. You also mentioned love. Love. So when we fall in love, or when we are in love, we feel happy. Sometimes it can be sad experience as well. You break up with someone.
Yeah, I think people also get happy when they get what they want. You know, they have their expectations, and they're happy when they want that.
for few.
For a few time.
Yeah. What
I think it's.
they want. Expectations fulfilled.
Inner fulfillment.
Inner fulfillment.
You don't want anything else
Okay.
after having that.
Satisfied. Yes.
for now. And don't want anything else.
Yeah, I was actually going to say inner contentment, which
Yes.
is fulfillment, really, so that covers that.
No anxiety, maybe?
No anxiety.
Mm.
No fear, then,
Fear.
yeah.
Yes.
Anxiety.
Fear.
Mhm.
Freedom to choose.
Freedom to choose. Very good. Freedom to choose. Anything else? Happiness. It's very subjective. Any other?
Friendships? Is it something that?
Friendships? So if you have a good friend, you can feel you can share with him your emotions, your thoughts.
Mm.
You can discuss different topics. You can play different games together. So it's good. Friendships.
Sorry, are you saying what happiness is, or
What does it mean
what
to
you
you?
get? All right, okay.
Yeah. I'm just putting everyone's thoughts. Joy, feeling of joy.
Yes.
Anything else?
Peace.
Peace.
Yes.
Hello. Welcome. Wow, this is a big family. It's wonderful to see. Anything else comes to your mind? No?
Sense enjoyment.
Sense enjoyment. It's very specific. Welcome. Nice to see you here. We just dropping some ideas. What does happiness mean to you? How would you define happiness for yourself? Sorry to put you on the spot, you just came, but we just want to share some ideas.
Yeah.
Anything comes to your mind when you think about happiness?
How do you define happiness? Happiness. Yeah.
Looking at you
Just what do you
smiling is showing or expressing your happiness. It's okay. It's okay. We've got a lot of different ideas to work with. So, well, there are different definitions. Obviously, as you said, happiness is very subjective, right, to every person. So philosophers who write about happiness typically take their subject matter to be either of two things, each corresponding to a different sense of the term. So most of the definitions suggest that happiness is a state of mind. That's when you feel joy and satisfaction, right? Again, from psychological point of view and from psychiatric point of view, you can think about biology, that there is like a chemical dopamine. When it gets into your brain, you feel that kind of joy and satisfaction. That's if you get really, really technical. The second school of thought in terms of happiness starts maybe with Aristotle. You've heard of Aristotle?
Yeah, Aristotle.
The philosopher. So he says happiness consists of achieving through the course of whole lifetime all the goods: health, wealth, knowledge, friends, got a few things there, etc. That lead to the perfection of human nature and to the enrichment of human life. So, yeah, as you said, happiness is a very, very broad term. And all the philosophers, all the psychologists, they have their own definition of happiness. But we experience, we all want to be happy. Anyone doesn't want to be happy in this room?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we all want to be happy, right? That's we try to organize our life in such a way that we feel happiness, and we try to maximize that happiness, and we try to reduce anxiety, we try to reduce negative emotions, sadness, loneliness, all of these feelings, and try to increase joy and satisfaction. But we experience a lot of blocks on the way to happiness, right? So you, for example, you wanted to get a certain job, you wanted to be airplane pilot or something like this. You get this job, finally you fly the planes, but then there's problems. You know, there's always problems. You have to do paperwork, flights get delayed, people, you don't get paid, or, you know, there's always some problem. Doesn't matter what you want to achieve in life, there's always going to be some block, some obstacle, and you have to deal with it, right? Rarely you will see like something just goes very well, you know. Like there's always some problem. So what Michael mentioned before, the concept limitless happiness. I want to go into this concept deeper because, as we mentioned, we have a lot of problems. We have a lot of blocks to our happiness, but we want to experience happiness more and more, again and again, right? You don't want to suffer. Suffering is like on the other end of happiness. So there's a concept in psychology, it's called endless happiness. So it works like this. You buy a new phone, iPhone 14, 15, whatever, 13. So you buy this new phone and you feel happy instantly because you wanted to buy it. So how long does the happiness last when you bought the new phone?
Until you get it.
Until the new version comes out.
Until the new version comes out, yeah. So you just bought iPhone 11, then there's already a half a year gone, and you know iPhone 12 comes out, and you want it. So it's everything in our life is going through that cycle. When we want to achieve something, we buy a new phone. You feel happy, but then that happiness decreases. Right. And it doesn't matter, you wanted to get a new job, you get this job, and then slow, every day it becomes like a routine, don't really feel that happy. Make it easier. On a hot summer day you want to buy ice cream. Right. So you go to the shop, you Baskin Robbins or whatever, and you buy this ball of ice cream. You eat it, you feel satisfied. You buy a second one, you eat it, you feel satisfied again. Well, what happens after you eat 5? What happens after you eat 10?
You wouldn't look at that.
Yeah. And then if you buy like 15 and then you eat it, you already want to throw up. So your happiness kind of becomes suffering. You get sick. Yeah. So, and that's everything material in this life will only bring us happiness and satisfaction for a very short period of time. And that happiness that you will experience, it will always decrease. It will never increase. So, what is current society offering us? It offers us a multisensory experience. So, there's a whole field in psychology that focuses on multisensory experience. So basically, it focuses on how to satisfy our senses. Our sense of touch, our sense of hearing. When we hear nice music, there's a huge industry that's focused on creating music, right? Different sorts of music, and according to different types of people, according to their likes and tastes. Taste. Different restaurants. In Hollywood, there's many different restaurants. You can go to Indian restaurant, Japanese, Chinese, any type of restaurant. Smell, like the smell. When you walked into this room, did anyone notice the smell? Yeah. So it smells incense. It smells very nice. So we have different senses, and there's a whole field in psychology focusing on how to maximize the happiness that we experience when we're connecting our senses to sense objects. That's what they focus on. So there is I wanted to specifically talk about, there is one place in Melbourne. Has anyone been to Melbourne?
No.
You've been to Melbourne? Melbourne? You've been to Melbourne? You've all been to Melbourne. So there is a restaurant, I think it's closed now, but I think it's called Attica. So that restaurant is not a usual restaurant. So you would walk in, and there'll be a separate table for you, and then usually it's dark. And then depends on what you're ordering. For example, you order some Hawaiian food. They'll bring you a plate with a sand on it and whatever dish you ordered. They will bring you a music player, so you can put the earphones in and you'll hear the music of the waves of the ocean. So they try to use every single sense in your, they try to engage every single sense in your enjoyment of the food. So they try to maximize that experience, right? But then, again, once you finish your food, you walk out, your happiness is over, you know, you feel satisfied for some time and then you get hungry again, and that happiness is just gone. And you paid a lot of money for that. So the current society, that's all it can offer us, unfortunately. It takes our senses and uses and creates different sense objects. And then when we put them together, that's what we call happiness in the current society. But we are not satisfied, still not satisfied. So we become saturated after some time with various sense objects that advertised on the billboards. Right, there's so many phones coming out, there's so many cars, there's so many different, you know, new songs that you can listen to. You can't even listen to all of them, it's just too many, you know. Especially in the world we live in, globalized, big world, interconnected. So, and all of these advertisements, all of these billboards, they're targeting our vulnerable spot, our heart. They're targeting our emotions, because they know we want to be happy. And the people who are creating advertisement they also want to be happy. But, you know, for them it's very limited the way they see happiness, and then they realize that people also don't have any knowledge about the real happiness, how to achieve the real happiness within your heart. So, when do you experience happiness? You mentioned before, is it when you buy a new iPhone you experience the most happiness? Is it after you buy an iPhone you experience the most happiness, or is it before? Anyone wants to guess?
Before.
Before?
Anticipation.
The anticipation.
I think it is actually when you get that shit on your hand, when you like actually have it on your hand physically.
Actually explains it.
Finally got it.
But maybe followed by advisory.
When you just buy it. Okay, so there was a juice study in psychology. So what they did is like, person wanted to drink juice, orange juice. So they recorded his brain activity, they recorded his excitement and so on. So, and his dopamine level. And so actually they found out when the person was thinking about it, It's like, okay, I'm gonna go home, I'm gonna drink some orange juice. That moment, in that moment, he was experiencing the most happiness. They did a huge study, many people took part of it. So when they drank juice, they experienced less happiness. So your anticipation of that happiness, your expectation of being happy, that brings you more happiness than actually the process itself.
So actually, when we decide to buy phone, that we're more happy than we actually get it.
Yeah, yeah. So you finally saved enough money and you're like, all right, I've got like $1,000 so I can go buy a new iPhone. And you're like, in that moment, you feel the most happiness in current terms. So, so maybe then happiness is related to the enjoyment inside your mind. What do you think?
Yes,
Yeah.
inside the mind.
So that's why many meditation schools nowadays they focus on, just sit down, relax, and just breathe in and focus on something inside of you, and just feel happy. Just imagine you're on the beach and there's many waves coming through, very nice sounds, very nice smells, fresh air, and just imagine and just feel happy. So many techniques people use nowadays, which can make you feel a little bit more calm, peaceful, a little bit more happy when you try to imagine things, because actually a lot of our happiness is related to our mind activity. What we imagine, what we dream of, what we aspire, what we expect. So maybe we just need to imagine. I'll give you another study. That's a very interesting study. So in this study, psychologists measured. They measured people's goals. What do you want to achieve in your life? Different people wanted to achieve different things. Some people wanted to, get some career success. Some people wanted to start a new family. Some people wanted to find a soul partner. Some people wanted to help others. Many different aspirations, many different desires. Some people wanted to be happy. They wanted to always feel happy. They wanted to achieve happiness in their life. So, out of all these different groups of people, which were divided according to their desires, according to their aspirations, they lived their normal lives, and then after some time, so they were measured how happy they were in the beginning of the study, and then the psychologists measured how happy they were by the end of the study. People didn't have to change anything. They just asked what kind of aspirations you have, what do you want to achieve in your life. And they found that people who want to be happy, who want to achieve happiness in their lives, were the most depressed people out of all. Why is that?
I think because
Too much
they had
expectation.
expectations and they didn't get what they wanted. Like for example, if I wanted to be doctor, and after 10 years, if I didn't become a doctor and I was working in some other place, I wouldn't be happy. Maybe that's what happened to them. Yeah.
Okay. That's a good explanation.
It's like a carrot that they feel that they may not be able to ever achieve it, is they just keep searching for it.
Mm.
Very nice. Any suggestions why? It's weird, right? You want to be happy. Other people didn't have their main goal to be happy. They had many other goals, but they were more happy than those people who wanted to be happy.
I think it's an unreasonable expectation to be happy all the time. That's what life is. It's not like you're happy 24/7. There are going to be challenges. So having that expectation that you're going to be happy all the time is you're going to be depressed, yeah, because you're never fulfilled, you're never satisfied. Whereas if your goal is, okay, I want professional success, you work towards that, and eventually you feel satisfied.
Yes.
Perfect explanation. That's actually what they found. People who wanted to be happy in their lives, they had really high expectations of happy events occurring again and again in their lives. They wanted to maximize that sensory experience. Right. So whenever you feel hungry, instead of getting normal food or whatever you can cook, you try to cook the best food, you try the most enjoyable food, you go to the best restaurant, you know. But you can't go to the best restaurant again and again. Like sometimes you just will run out of money or something, you know, something will happen, and then that expectation doesn't meet. Then you feel disappointed. You're on the way to the restaurant in the car, and then you get stuck in the traffic jam. And by the time you get there, it's full. You can't go in there. So people, they have high expectations, and they have not only high expectations of that particular event that will make them happy, but they have high expectations of the frequency of the events. They want to have that sensory experience again and again and again and again. Right. But then again, we come back to that study which says you can't have that experience again and again and again and again, because your senses get saturated, yourself, you will get tired. You can't have ice cream again and again and again and again. Well, you can, but then you might get sick, or you will just lose the taste for it. You know? But that's what society offers us. Again and again, try to maximize that experience. So what's the missing piece? Why are we still not satisfied?
Because we're looking at the wrong place.
We're living in the wrong place.
Yeah.
Where do you want to live?
No, you're looking at the wrong
you're
place for
you're
happiness.
looking at the wrong place. Where do we need to look?
You look inside.
Inside. What does that mean?
Well, you don't depend your happiness on sensory enjoyments.
Nice. Anyone else? What are we missing? Or you all agree that it's something that's inside? Yeah. So we realize that we can't find the real happiness, what we're looking for in the current society, especially in the Western society. That's why we can turn our heads towards the ancient knowledge. In this particular case, we'll look at Vedic knowledge. Yeah, Vedic knowledge that originally comes from India. But there's many different cultures, there are many different traditions, even in Hobart or in Tasmania. There were people living here way before the British invaded this country, right? And they had traditions and cultures which were destroyed or sometime 50,000 or even more years of experience, years of practices, years of knowledge have been destroyed, unfortunately, in a very short period of time. But the way the current society goes, we now realize we can't go that way, because it's the same story again and again. It's the same story that we need to use our senses, and we need to create the best possible sense objects for everybody else to use as frequently as we can. And that's going to make us happy. It's not, because what we're looking for ever-increasing happiness. And that's what's really interesting. That's where psychology kind of stops. Because I raised this question in class, and the teacher who wrote a book on happiness, he was a bit confused. He was saying, he's like, yeah, it's an interesting point. But then he didn't have any answers. He was like, we just got to maximize our happiness somehow or other. So he wrote the whole book on how you can maximize the happiness. But what is really interesting, I said, why don't we focus on that desire to be happy, ever increasing desire to be happy? Not something that comes and goes in a very short period of time, but something that stays for a long period of time. Something that brings fulfillment. Why don't we focus on this desire? It's very interesting to study. Where does this desire come from? Like, look at the kids. They don't have any problems, right? They just run around, play games. Something's happening. So, yeah, you like playing games? Yeah, wonderful. Let's see. It's a very simple life. But they try to find happiness in simple things. And they're more happy than us. We're sitting here, you know, how old we are. We're all different ages. But the kids, you look at them, they're always happy, you know, they just run around. They don't have like, well, nowadays many kids have iPhones, iPads. But then even when we were kids, we didn't have any iPhones or iPads, and we still were just playing around, running around, and it's so good, you know, we just feeling happy. So where current society is taking us is like, we just gotta always create new technology, we have to create new things, we have to create new sense objects for our enjoyment. But in the end, it just brings a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety. Wars. Biggest wars in the world, you know, over different resources, to capture different resources. That's where current society is going. So let's look inside, as you mentioned. Let's look at ourselves. Let's dive deep into Bhagavad Gita, the essence of Vedic knowledge. So I have a text here. It's from chapter 2 and text 14. I'll just read the translation of the text. The non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress and their disappearance in due course are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. So, happiness and distress, they're like yin and yang of our lives. They always exchanging. It always comes. Sometimes you're happy, sometimes you're distressed, and that's the waves. It comes in waves. We want to achieve happiness. We strive so much, right? We all want to achieve happiness in some way. So that's why we try so hard in our lives. We try to earn more money. We try to establish good relationships. We try to have a lot of different friends, and we try to go deeper in our relationships. And it's fine. But we put in all our energy towards these things, and then when our expectations are not met, we feel disappointed. But then what to do with the unpredictable factors in our lives? When you earn all your money, right? And then you bought a nice Lamborghini or whatever, or Porsche. And then you drive on a nice road from Hobart to Launceston or any other place, and then you drive, and then some car comes out in your lane, and then it just hits you, and bang. And then you've been saving for this car for like the last 5 years. So nowadays we have insurance, but then still it's a very unpleasant experience. You've been saving your money for something, and then unexpected event happens. You know. So, or you wanted to. For example, you're a professional tennis player. Anyone plays tennis? Tennis? No one else? Well, any other sport? Anyone? Cricket? You like cricket? Watch cricket. So you're a professional cricket player. You get on the pitch, and then you've been waiting for all your life to that moment when you play against your Indian cricket player, play against Australia, or you play in Olympic Games. So you've been waiting for that moment, and then you get sick, and you can't play anymore. Or you break your arm, or you break your leg. You've been working so hard for the last 20 years to get to that level, and then you just can't play. It's a huge disappointment. Did you ever want to break your leg? Did you ever try so hard and, get sick? No, you never try for bad things. You only try for good things, right? You never try for bad things. But bad things, they happen all the time. You get sick, you lose your money, you lose your job. These things happen naturally. But for some reason, whatever good happens to us, we think, I achieved it. It was my aspiration, it was my goal, it's something that I did, it was my energy that I invested. It was my smart brain that I used to achieve something. So you are credited to yourself, you credit to yourself or to your parents or to someone. But then if something bad happens, we only blame everybody else for that.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You get COVID and then you're like, oh, that person who was sitting next to me, he was coughing and that was him, you know. He made my life worse, why do I have to get sick and stuff like that? But what we see in this text, that happiness and distress and their disappearance in due course are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. It comes and goes without your endeavor. Happiness and distress happen to you without your endeavor. Sometimes you wake up in the morning and you feel happy and bright. You open the curtain and you see the sunlight and it's a nice day and you want to put on the nice music and walk around and you want to go and see your friends. You feel with happiness. You just want to share that. Some days you wake up and then you're tired and you have to go to work again, and the kids don't listen to me, you know, something. And I come to work and then the boss is just screaming at me because I didn't do a certain job. Yeah. It's funny, one of my friends, he's a psychologist, so he said one day I came back home and I was feeling really, really frustrated after the whole day just listening to people, to their complaints, and I just felt drained. And then as I walked in, my kids, they created so much mess and they didn't clean it up, you know, there's toys flying everywhere, and he was just standing there and looking at all this and feeling like very, very angry and frustrated. And then he sat down and then his son came out, maybe 5 or 6 years old. But he knew his dad was a psychologist, so he looked at his dad, and dad looked at him, and he said, "Hey Dad, you want to talk about this?" So yeah, it's the happiness and distress will come without your endeavor. It's hard to accept. We strive for it for our whole lives. We want to achieve things, but it comes and goes. Even happiness. You don't want to get sick, obviously, but you will get sick at some point in time. You don't want to get old. You will get old at some point in time. None of us here want to die, but that will come. And it will come very unexpectedly. So, Bhagavad Gita gives us a priceless knowledge about happiness, about who we are, and about how can we make our life fulfilling, how can we stay peaceful and happy and calm, without endeavoring for material things, without endeavoring for material happiness. So that's where we start. We start at the first point is to realize that all these material things, they won't make us happy. They will make us happy for a short period of time. But this happiness and this distress will come and go. So even when you sometimes feel happy, or when you sometimes feel distressed, you feel lonely, just know this time will go by and you will feel better. It will just happen naturally. You don't need to really endeavor for these things. Everything comes naturally. So that's another concept that Bhagavad Gita describes. Most of you know it, it's karma. So, but I won't go into detail what exactly karma is and how it works, because it's a huge topic and it's very, very scientific in terms of there's many applications of karma. So I have another text. Let's look at this one. It's chapter 18, which is the last chapter of Bhagavad Gita, and text 38. I'll just read translation. That happiness which is derived from contact of the senses with their objects and which appears like nectar at first but poison at the end is said to be of the nature of passion. I just like the example given here. You just listen to these commentaries. This is commentaries by Srila Prabhupada, who wrote translation of Bhagavad Gita, and it's called Bhagavad Gita as it is. So if you want to get a copy of that, you can do it in the end of the session. I really recommend it. Out of all books, this is quite essential knowledge, and it will really help you in your search for happiness. So in the commentaries, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, he writes, a young man and a young woman meet, and the senses drive the young man to see her, to touch her, and to have sexual intercourse. In the beginning, this may be very pleasing to the senses, but at the end, or after some time, it becomes just like poison. They are separated, or there is divorce, there is lamentation, there is sorrow, etc. Such happiness is always in the mode of passion. Happiness derived from a combination of the senses and the sense objects is always a cause of distress and should be avoided by all means. That's a heavy statement. Because we are driven by our senses, right? So, it's a simple math. We want to take our senses and use sense objects and put them together, and that's the chemistry of happiness, which is very, very temporary and unfulfilling. So, an intelligent person does not take part in the source of misery, which are due to contact with the material senses. Such pleasures have a beginning and an end, and so the wise man does not delight in them. That's another text. And that's from chapter 5, text 22, and then another text that follows. If one is able to tolerate the urges of the material senses and check the force of desire and anger, he is well situated and is happy in this world. One whose happiness is within, who is active and rejoices within, and whose aim is inward, is actually the perfect yogi. So we have to look inside ourselves for the happiness which is unconditional. I don't think we have this word here. Freedom to choose. No. We need happiness which is unconditional, which is not dependent on our senses, which is not dependent on the sense objects. Then we can feel liberated. Good liberation. Feeling free. Yeah. We need to look for the happiness inside ourselves. And that search starts when we understand who we are. What's the problem of the current society in their search for happiness? They treat ourselves, they treat each other as bodies, as a physical body that has a lot of different senses, and that's who we are, with the mind and brain inside. And that's the whole problem. That's the problem. Because if you think like this, if you think I'm this body, then you can't find any other source of happiness except the sense objects. Because you define, okay, I'm this body, I have senses. When I use the senses to connect with the sense objects, that's when I feel happy. That's it. You can't. You can only change the sense objects or your senses. That's it. And that's why we don't feel happy, because we are not this body. That's where the whole philosophy of Bhagavad Gita starts. You have to understand you're not this body. Who are we?
We're the soul.
We're the soul. Okay. We're the soul. But then, if we go into different religions or spiritual practices, or different meditations, what we do is we think, okay, I'm a human being that is having that spiritual experience. Soon we're gonna play some music, hopefully that will end soon. But we'll play some music. And we're thinking, okay, I'm a human being in the first place, right? And whenever I do some spiritual practice, whenever I go to the church, whenever I go to the temple, I'm having a spiritual experience. That's how I understand it. But actually, we are spiritual beings that are having a human experience. Think about this.
Yes.
Yeah. And then the famous example, I know many of you probably heard this. It's an example of the bird in the cage. Right? So let's imagine we're all friends here, right? And can you get your name? Ranjita. And yours? Mika. And that's not Michael. Ranjita. So Ranjita, and you're all friends, and you go to the shop and you buy each one of you buy a bird, right? But Ranjita is very, very rich person. So along with the bird, she buys a very, very nice cage made of gold and diamonds. When she gets home, she paints it, she puts even more diamonds, she makes it even look more beautiful. Mika, you're also rich. You're not as rich as Ranjita. So you also get a bird and you get a cage made of silver. You get home and you also make it look nice, put some lights in there, you know, put some fake diamonds, but still make it nice. And Michael, unfortunately, young middle class person from Hobart, you get a simple cage, maybe even wooden cage. You get home, and then a few days go by, and then Ranjita creates a group call, WhatsApp or whatever, calls Mika and Michael and says, I'm in full distress. I don't know what's happening, but my bird is not singing, my bird is not flying. What is going on? You know, I made such a nice cage, but it looks like it's almost dead for some reason. I open the cage, doesn't want to go flying, looks like it's always sleeping. What's happening? And Mika says, same with my bird. My cage, I know it's not as good as yours, Ranjita, but still my cage is also nice. But the bird is there, it's not flying, not singing. And Michael says, what's going on, guys? My bird is singing and flying. What's happening? My bird is happy, makes me happy. And then Michael says, did you feed the bird? And then you know, oh, that's right. I have to feed the bird first. Wow. So does it really matter how good is your cage? Michael keeps it clean, keeps it nice and simple, but this bird is happy. And our birds are dying. That's what we're missing in this point in time. Our birds are longing for that food, for that spiritual food, for that spiritual happiness. That's why we feel sad, that's why we feel disappointed, that's why we feel unfulfilled. Always disturbed, our minds are always disturbed. We don't feel peace, we don't feel happiness. We can't feel calm. That's why we have so many problems in our relationships. Because we build those relationships on the idea that I am this body and she is that body, and I have to make her body feel good and she has to make my body feel good. So I have to make her cage beautiful and she has to make my cage beautiful, but no one is feeding the birds. And that's the problem. That's why we don't feel happy. We don't have this knowledge, unfortunately, in the current society. And that's a missing part, that's a missing piece. And no one wants to look back at the ancient knowledge. Why? Bhagavad Gita is available, look how many books we have. And I'm just talking about this tradition. There's many other traditions which say similar, which have the similar knowledge. But no one looks back at those traditions nowadays. It's all considered to be a belief, it's all considered to be faith or your religion. It's only applicable to you. You have to be a modern man. You have to work hard, party hard, enjoy while you can. Life is it's too short. You only live once. You cut all of this. Get everything you can in the present moment, because who knows what will happen tomorrow. That's the current philosophy. That's all it is. It's very, very dull, and there is no substance. We can't go deeper with that knowledge. And maybe I'll read one more quote from Bhagavad Gita. I have one. No? I don't have one. I think, yeah, so if you just try to get away, today, just try to meditate on the first quote that we read. The non-permanent, I will read it again, and just try to listen for each word and try to think about it and relate to yourself and to your own experience. The non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress, and their disappearance in due course, are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. The appearance and disappearance in due course. In due course of time, you will feel happy. In due course of time, you will feel distressed. And it will come and it will go, for sure. And they all arise from our sense perception. I guess I'll just finish up with this concept that I've studied in social work recently. It's called, crisis. Everyone's experienced some sort of crisis in our lives. What is crisis? Crisis in your life. Any ideas? What is crisis?
Sudden events that's unnerving.
Sudden events.
Or a situation we don't know how to deal with.
Yeah.
Like the unexpected occurrence of the event which we are not prepared for, which we were not expecting to happen in any time. So,
Yeah.
Unmanageable event.
Unmanageable event. Okay. Nice. So there has to be events before crisis, right? So our loved person dies. That's a crisis. But not for all people. Why is that? Because the event itself is not a crisis. Our experience of that event creates a crisis. So, for some people, losing $100 could be a crisis. For others who make billions of dollars, losing $100 is nothing. They won't even notice.
Yeah.
So the event itself is not a crisis. It's our experience of that event. So there is a little space between the stimuli or the event and between our response. And that little space is freedom to choose how you're going to respond to that situation. Right? So these little events are the happiness and distress events. So they come and go all the same time. But in that short period of time, before we respond to the event, we have a little time to decide how we're going to respond to this event. You're taking a bus, going on a ride, catching a bus home, for example. The person walks in, this is a very bad mood, and he just walks by and just like pushes you. And it's a very unpleasant experience. This distress came by in due course of time. You had to experience it. It's your karma. Someone pushed you. Unpleasant experience. It just came in due course of time, nothing you can change. That event happened. What you can do? If you're a very responsive person, you will just turn around and say, hey mate, what are you doing? You want to, look where you go, and then it might start a conflict, and then, but you can respond differently. You can choose your response. So I won't go into it, that's a different topic, freedom to choose, but what the point was that happiness and distress come in due course of time. You have freedom to choose how you're going to respond to that event, because happiness and distress is just part of your sense perception. It has nothing to do with you as a soul. Your soul happiness, your happiness doesn't depend on the external events. The real happiness that we want, the peace, you can stay peaceful in that situation. Someone walks by and just bumps into you accidentally. You can be peaceful and happy in that event. But we can't, because we think, oh, I'm this body, my cage is hurt, because I'm this cage. No, you're the bird inside. You can take that bird, Michael, let it fly and throw away the cage. And the bird will be fine. The bird will be happy. So let's just live with it. So we'll stop here. Hopefully it'll give you some food for thought. And you can meditate on it, you can think about it. But definitely if you're looking for something deeper, for that deep spiritual experience, you first have to understand who you are. Because once you understand you're the soul, then you start looking for the source of the soul, and then you start looking for the spiritual happiness, for the real happiness. That's the missing piece to happiness.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes,
What
please.
do you do for your happiness?
For my happiness.
Yeah.
We're about
Where
to,
do you look? And what do you do?
we're about to do it now. I'm
Okay.
going to share that experience with you. So, as I said before, there's many different cultures and traditions. And that's very important to recognize. Once you get the absolute truth, once you understand that there is an absolute truth, and you understand certain things, then you can look at other different traditions and their knowledge that they give, and you can find a lot of common threads. You can see, wow, like Muslims or Christians, they're teaching the same knowledge. Not all of them, but some of them. Where you can see the absolute truth, you're like, wow, these people are actually teaching same knowledge that I'm teaching. So it doesn't have to be specific religion. But you can choose one, whatever you feel comfortable with, and go deep with that. And you can find the answers there. And if you can't, you can turn to the other tradition. Maybe it's been, some religions, although they have their original sources everywhere, some of them have been corrupted over years. Bible has been rewritten many times, unfortunately. There's so many translations of Bhagavad Gita, and many of them are very, very different to each other. So once you see the absolute truth, you hear that absolute knowledge, and then you experience it, you know what is right, you know what is wrong, you know what is that spiritual experience. Then it doesn't have to be that specific religion. You can go in any other religion and experience the same spiritual happiness, because we are talking about the same source of happiness. So, thank you for your question. I will share that experience. So, I liked what we do, what we will do very soon after the questions. We will sing together the Hare Krishna mantra, or it's called Maha Mantra. So mantra translates as man means mind, and dra means to control your mind, to not be disturbed by these appearances and disappearances of happiness and distress that come and go in due course of time. So by chanting this mantra, first, hopefully, you can experience some peace, because you can control your mind. Then you will see some glimpse of happiness, of the real happiness. You don't need anything else. You will see. You can chant in your mind, you can chant out loud, you can chant it using music like we're gonna do now, together. So, however you do it, you will experience that happiness. I promise, I guarantee. Well, I can't really guarantee because it depends on your personality and maybe the way you approach it. But if you do it sincerely, I guarantee that you will have some sort of experience, of spiritual experience. I will explain after. When we start, what does Hare and Krishna mean? I just want to see if any other questions are there. That is our discussion wanted. Questions? Questions?
I'm wondering if you're talking about how true happiness is from inside, and we should not listen to the demands of our senses and match it to the specific sense objects.
Yeah.
How attainable is that? How achievable is that? Because we do live in a world where we have to work to get money to pay the bills, so we have to fulfill certain things to just survive. It's just a thought, like how achievable is that true happiness from inside?
How achievable is that? So, let me paraphrase, if I get it right. You were saying we spend a lot of time doing many other things, like working, studying, spending time with the family and so on. How can we experience happiness, real happiness? How do we find time for real happiness? Or
Like,
okay.
so let's say, it seems like from what we've discussed, that happiness is being detached from, objects and, new cars and phones. Not necessarily new, just let's say objects like cars, phone, whatever. But we do need them.
Yeah.
We do need them to survive, it's not even to be happy, it's just survival. I guess I'm answering my own question, like there's the difference between happiness and survival. Yeah, I know mine. So it's I guess like, yeah, sorry, answer my own question. Okay.
Yeah, we need those things to survive. Because in the end, as I said, we are the spiritual souls spiritual souls that are having a human experience. We are in these bodies. Right?
Prabhu, I'm going to share one thought.
One second.
Okay.
We're in the cage. You still need to make sure that cage is clean. You need to make sure that cage is fine. Your place where you live, your body that you live, you need to meet the needs of your body. Right? But the current society is trying to increase and increase and increase. You gotta buy not just a simple car, but you gotta buy a very, very expensive car. So see, that's where we missing the point. That's
I think it was, what I'm going to share is something similar. We can take an example of a car. So if I have to go to work, I need a car. Without a car, I cannot go. So to go to the work, myself, I have to keep the car clean. I have to do the servicing of the car. I have to check the tire pressure. I have to put the petrol on. But it doesn't mean to go to work, I don't need Lamborghini or Ferrari. But I still need a decent car to go to the work and maintain myself. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes. Thank you.
Any other concerns, questions, comments, feedback?
Yeah, I have another question.
Just one second.
I'm at that stage of life. I don't feel happiness with material things anymore. I do feel happiness. I got something, but happiness comes out of blue sometimes. I want to stay in that zone all the time, but it doesn't. Sometimes everything's going fine as well, but you're down. Sometimes things are chaotic,
Mhm.
but you are happy from inside. So that's very strange, you know. Maybe it's a weird stage of life or what, but that's what happens with me. I just wanted to share that.
That's a nice experience.
Yeah.
In the scriptures in Bhagavad Gita, this is a confirmed experience, like many sages. They started their spiritual path when they got sick of material things. They're like, okay, I'm not really experiencing happiness in any of these things. I can't go out and drink every night. It's just not making me happy. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing your experience.
Yeah, you mentioned before that doesn't matter whatever religion we follow, if we go deep into it, like we have so many common grounds, so many common threads that you mentioned there. And I believe like there's so many religions now, people are not finding happy with their own religion, like Christianity. I think if you see the latest research report that there's more people living Christianity than any other religion. So what do you think, why the people are getting detached from their own religion and trying to go and explore another religion?
It happens with all religions. You mentioned Christianity because it's the biggest,
Yeah.
but even look at India, so many different types of religions, and people experiencing similar things. Don't look at different Muslim religions. People think like Muslims are like terrorists, all of them. They're not all terrorists. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who wrote this translation of Bhagavad Gita and commentaries, says that the reason why people don't feel satisfied and happy in their religion is because they want to be cheated, they're not sincere. That's why I said you have to be sincere. That's the first thing. If you want to be cheated, if you want to cheat others, and you want, then obviously you will be cheated. You're not sincere, you're not really opening up to other people. Many people come to religion to gain material things. And material doesn't necessarily mean money. It also can mean some prestige, some self-fulfillment, just to look like a good person or just like to feel like a good person. It's still cheating because it's about your own ego, your own selfishness. You want to feel, you want to buff it up. That's enjoyment in the mind, nothing to do with the spiritual experience. So that's why many people, they get disappointed or get tired of religion because they achieve a certain post and they feel satisfied and people look up to them, but then after some time they're just like, okay, I'm done with this, I'm bored. Because there was no sincerity, they didn't really get any spiritual experience. So that's what I want to actually wish for every one of you, is to be sincere in your spiritual practice. Be sincere with yourself in the first place. Be honest with yourself. Try to not to lie to yourself. I have a friend who likes to lie. He lies so much that sometimes he says a lie. He knows it's a lie. I know it's a lie. But then at some point he starts to believe in it. He's like, wow, no, but it actually happened. I was like, man, it never happened. So that's how we live. We live in that illusion. We create these lies to ourselves, It's not necessary. It's not going to make us happy. Be sincere. Be sincere. Ask questions. Ask yourself what you want to do, what you want to be. Many of us are traumatized by our experience when we were growing up, by our parents. Because our parents, well, if we were lucky, they had some knowledge. But if we were not, then, we have a lot of traumatic experience from childhood as well. Many of us. We're traumatized. So that's why it's important to be sincere. That's why it's important to ask these questions. And do it while you can. Any other questions? Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
So
I think because most of the religious leaders, they are not being sincere with themselves, and then more of the modern practice has been corrupted
Yeah.
with the time, and they are only looking for the material fame. So-called gurus and religious leaders, they are only looking after the fame and money and not looking into the actual practices
Yes.
from the ancient times. And,
That's true.
yeah.
But at the same time, the people who are following these religious leaders are not innocent.
Mm.
The sincere person will not follow that religious leader. He won't be blinded by these material things that the other religious leader is offering. He'll be like, no, this is not what I want. I want some spiritual experience. I don't need to pay for happiness. So there's a lot of sincere people in the many other religions.
Yes.
There's many sincere people in Christianity. They can, like, many of them are gurus, and they're speaking the same truth. If you see a religious leader speaking bad about other religions, just walk away. It can't be. There's many different paths to God. It doesn't mean we can accuse others on choosing that path. I can walk out of this room this way, that way, that way, that way. And then if I say, oh, Ranjita is walking that way, she's following the wrong path, but she's still going to walk out of the room. Why should I criticize her? So be careful. One thing, be sincere. Second thing that you mentioned, you have to, and that we can dwell upon, is don't criticize others. That's going to stop your spiritual practice, I guarantee you. Okay. Any questions? Any other concerns? Okay, let's do some meditation, some spiritual practice, but hopefully it's going to be fun, because I don't know how we're going to do it. I have a harmonium here. Hopefully it works. I haven't tested. So we're going to sing very simple mantra, which consists of 3 words: Hari, Krishna, and Rama. This is not a Hindu mantra. This is not an Indian mantra. This is not sectarian, no cult, no religion. This is the Maha mantra, means greatest mantra, the seed of all mantras. And I know some of you are from India, but it doesn't come from India, unfortunately. It comes from the spiritual world, and it's meant for every single soul. Because I'm not Russian, and you're not Indian, and you're not
No.
Nepalese.
No.
You're the soul.
We're the soul.
So we can't really discriminate against each other anymore, because we're all the soul. So that's another beauty of understanding that we are the soul. It doesn't matter what kind of body you have, what kind of situation in life you have, because we are all originally souls. So 3 words. Krishna. Krishna means the most attractive. The most attractive person. Michael is attractive. Mika is attractive. Virginia is attractive, but not to everyone. I'm attractive, but not to everybody. Krishna is attractive to all. That's what it means. It's just the meaning of the word. Rama means the source of all happiness and pleasure. The real happiness. The spiritual happiness. Rama. And Hari is the energy of the most attractive person. It's the energy that connects us. That's why you see Hari, out of all 16 words, 8 of them are Hari. So exactly how. So Hari is the energy of that source of happiness that connects us to the source of happiness, to the most attractive person. So these are the names of God, and they, by chanting them, we create a sound vibration. As our bodies consist of like 70 to 90% of water, they vibrate. Everything, our body will start vibrating. So, and this is transcendental sound vibration, this is spiritual sound vibration. It will go deep through your ears, through your whole body, to the soul. It will touch your soul. So let's focus just on hearing. Because spiritual practice means you can engage all your senses, but connect them to the spiritual source. That's what creates. Because we can use the senses. We're not useless, you know. We still have some hope. So we can use today hearing, and maybe if everyone is welcome to chant together. You can use your tongue and sing it, even if you don't know how to sing. Because together we can create a stronger vibration, and that will help us together to have a better experience, better spiritual experience. Yep. So we can try it out. We can turn the lights. How's everybody feeling? Is it okay? Just to create more peaceful. Do we have a cardinal? Steve can help us? Or he's making something for
We feel like having playing an instrument, quite welcome to that.
You can play?
Try.
Yeah, if you can, this will be wonderful. Yeah, please. Okay, so it's our first jam together. We've never played together. So just try to focus on singing first. We'll do call response. I'll sing and then you can respond. And we'll see how we go. Relax and enjoy. Very simple. Rama Thank you so much
Thank you.
for participating, for having that experience. I don't know how much time do we have left. What time is it now?
7:45. 7:45.
7:45. How's everyone feeling? Good. I like the most enthusiastic people, but for some reason they're sitting at the back.
That's the honest answer from the child.
I don't know, should we do one more?
Yeah, one more. We need one more.
Is it everyone's okay to do one more? We'll do a different melody, same words, but a little bit different.
Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much for singing. Anyone else to share experience? Kirtan. This is called Kirtan, by the way, if you didn't know. So there's different ways you can chant this mantra. You can chant it by yourself. That's some of us, we do this in the morning, like a meditation. We just repeat this mantra again and again, without music, for a couple of hours. And then, but you can sing it, you can keep playing it in your mind, you can listen to it. There's many different nice kirtans if you go on YouTube and you can hear them. You can play any melody on this, even pop songs, you know. Actually, a lot of famous melodies that are played in India now, they're originally Bollywood songs, but using this voice. So any melody, you can use any melody. You can sing, you can just say it, but that experience of saying it again and again, it fixes our mind on this mantra. Even though we don't understand, we don't fully understand what it means, we are having a spiritual experience. At least I was having, I don't know. Anyone wants to share their thoughts and feelings?
It was very peaceful.
Peaceful.
Yes.
Peaceful. Peace.
Yeah, I want to share my personal experience. I was really desperate, looking for happiness. You know, I was going to work and living a life, normal life. Like I was having a good life, but I was thinking, I want to be happy. You know, there's something that's not going on, and I started looking for meditation, yoga's options, and I tried different gurus, yogis gurus, like there's the Art of Living. I tried that meditation yoga. I tried meditation yoga with the Sadhguru, if some of the people know right now, and still something is not working. You know, what I'm doing wrong. I'm practicing yoga, I'm practicing meditation, and I was not feeling that happiness. I was not having that positive energy within me. And I came across Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and I started reading. I actually started off by reading Bhagavad Gita from one of the prominent lecturer, preacher from India, and I took the Bhagavad Gita class for 18 days, and I started practicing Hare Krishna mantra, and I was like, this is my personal experience. I felt really different. Now I would say I'm really happy. I'm the most happiest. Even at the work, people say, "What's going on? What's the difference?" You know, and I met devotees here in Hobart, and I'm really happy right now. This is my personal experience, and I don't have any reason and I'm chanting this mantra every day, and you can see how happy I am. Even I'm speaking. So you don't actually, as we already discussed, we're looking for this. We have to look inside, and this Maha Mantra is, I don't know, it's really divine mantra. It works on anyone, any state. I'm the living experience. I just wanted to share my experience. That's all. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. you so much for sharing.
Can I ask you a question? In a different situation, like where you lose your family members due to different cases like corona or due to war, is it possible to be in happiness or peace?
Obviously, people will be confused if you see your loved one
Like for
dies.
example,
Yeah.
people in Israel or Palestine at the moment, is it possible for them to be happy?
It's possible. It is possible. But at the same time, you have to understand what is happening around you. We think that happiness, we understand that happiness is a spiritual emotion, but there's also spiritual emotions which can be like sadness or feeling sorry or feeling empathy. So in the spiritual world, although you're always happy, if you're always connected to your soul, you're always happy. But at the same time, you can experience these negative emotions like, and negative is a bad word to use because it has a bad meaning, bad connotations to this word. But if someone dies and you're just, walking around dancing and being happy, that's obviously people will look at you like, you're not okay, No, it's an experience when we lose someone in our life. It's an experience of feeling losing that connection. It doesn't mean that person died. The body is gone. This machine is gone, but the soul is still living. So if you're feeling really, really sad when someone died because you think he's gone forever, that's ignorance. That means you don't understand what actually happened. But if you're feeling very, very sad when someone dies because you can't associate with that person anymore, because the soul is gone and the body cannot function without the soul, then it's a different story. Because, we could be friends, we could share really nice discussions, we could do a lot of things together. But then if I go, you will feel sad because you lost a friend. Or if you go, I'll feel sad because I lost my friend. I can't share with him anymore. But he's still alive. I know he's still alive. So it's natural to feel sad. It's natural to feel these feelings are okay. They're okay to feel sad. But you have to have knowledge as well to not be in ignorance. So, but it is, you can still feel that inner peace, inner happiness whenever you chant. And these situations, it doesn't come just like that. Like we came here, right? Once we go off and do our own things, again we'll experience this disturbances, happiness, distress, suffering. So mantra helps us to keep us on track. That's why we chant this mantra in the morning, so we are good for the day. Because we're going to wake up next morning, and you never know what's going to happen during the day. So you always have to be ready. And then if you're peaceful inside, then you don't react to situations. You stay calm and peaceful. Peace is the first step, or the first experience that you have when you chant this mantra. So that's a success. That's what the scriptures say. So you first should experience peace. These waves of happiness, distress, they become like a peaceful ocean. So, but then, the beauty of this mantra, and that's what we were talking about, endless happiness, whatever we experience in this world, always decreases our happiness. With this mantra, you can continue singing and singing and singing, and the more you sing and the more you chant, this feeling of happiness will continue to increase. That's the beauty of this mantra. That was your experience.
I started off with 1 round, and now I'm up to 16 rounds, and I want to do more and more. So it always increases. So you have that divine feeling, like, it's not material, obviously. You feel that. Just start with one beat, like one time, and you'll start to feel different straight away. It will work on your soul. Yeah, I tried different other mantras. So I told you I'm from Hindu family, so I know thousands of mantra, Vedic mantra. But this is why this is Maha Mantra. Anyone can chant at any situation. Even at work, I'm just singing.
That's right, exactly.
Yeah. And it works on the people who listens as well. So if I'm singing at work, my friends, they will become a devotee in the future for sure. Because even if someone hears it for one time, their life's going to change. That's the power of this mantra.
Yeah, sacred vibrations.
Yeah.
It's your experience.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, it's like a theory. You gotta test the theory.
Yeah, yeah.
Use scientific method.
Exactly.
So that's the scientific method.
Yeah,
for
yeah,
Spiritual heavens.
Yeah.
If you try it out.
yeah. It's a science. It's a science. It's not a belief. It's a science.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And we'll have a nice. We have a nice school prepared. Very nice vegetarian meal for us all tonight. So we can share some food and share some thoughts, talk to each other. Yeah. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for your.
A wonderful audience. Kids made a really nice contributions as well.
Is this your first time?
Yes. I think so. I haven't sure. Yeah, I started about 20 years ago. Actually, very similar kind of thing, like singing. So it's been nice meeting you.
Jeffree Star. Jeffree Star?